Hey, welcome to Beat Everyone. I'm Ben Flanagan with AL.com, and we are only 2 Saturdays away now. Alabama's August 30th road kickoff against Florida State is getting closer and closer. We're still in the thick of fall camp, and we have another scrimmage in the books. You can find recaps and some depth chart projections from our guys all over AL.com, so go check that out. And in just a little bit later on in this episode, we're going to prove what we really do or don't know about Alabama football with a little bit of trivia, so stay tuned for that. But first, today we've got a special guest. You may know this guy's work. I think you do. Someone with unique insight into the program, an insider, an analyst, someone who pays a little closer attention than anybody else trying to do this. Clint Lamb of Cover Crimson and A to Z Sports. Clint, welcome, man.
I appreciate it, Ben. How you doing today, brother?
Doing pretty well. So, I mean, like, your head's got to be spinning, right? I mean, I know that you've got the bandwidth to handle all this and you do it in such impressive fashion, but I mean, several weeks into fall camp now, it's just like a lot. But how are you doing these days?
I guess doing better now that the quarterback battle is out of the way. You know, I was kind of getting tired of that question because we all knew where it was trending, right? So just, it is a lot. And tomorrow, actually, we're going to be able to see the last practice, which, I mean, we don't get a ton from the media viewing periods, but it's enough to kind of whet your appetite a little bit. But it's finally about to be football season. So I don't know about you, man, but I'm kind of tired of previewing and predicting and projecting. I'm ready to react to some stuff. So I'm definitely looking forward to it.
Clint, why do you think they took so long to name Ty the starter? And I know that this is like a little head of schedule for Kalen DeBoer. Like this was like one of the soonest quarterback announcements he's made. But obviously with the portal and guys transferring at the drop of a hat, if they announce this or that. But it seems like, I mean, tell me, like I'm kind of on the side of the sooner you announce a quarterback, the better position mentally he might be in to like lead a team like this. And like the pressure might be off as you get closer to the first game of the season. What's your impression of that?
Yeah, that's interesting because I know back before the spring, I think it was Kalen DeBoer who was being interviewed, and they had asked, what would be like a timeline for you announcing the starting quarterback? And I don't remember the exact words that he used, but I do know that he made some mention of the benefits of exiting the spring and having your guy already figured out, making that announcement, working through the summer where everybody can go ahead and start to rally around that guy. And of course, you didn't end up seeing that. And I do think the transfer portal, and it's like what you don't want to do is, you're talking to Austin Mack, you're talking to Keelan Russell. Obviously, I don't think Russell was any sort of problem, but Austin Mack in particular. And you're saying, hey, you're still in this battle. We still believe in you. You're bringing them along. And then that second window closes. And then it's like, okay, we'll announce a starter now that you can't go anywhere. Like, I think that's not how this coaching staff operates. That's not how they want to do things. But I think the coaching staff knew where it was trending post-spring. They were going to give the other two guys the opportunity to get into fall camp, see how they've improved, and, maybe they could end up pushing him. But I think the coaching staff got a nice little balance of they told the team just enough in the sense of you said that if you were to start a game today, Ty Simpson would be the starting quarterback. And that allowed the team to kind of go ahead and rally around him while also leaving the door open for other guys to challenge and fall. Of course, Ty, he kept his foot down and his head down and continued to go to work. So he ended up being the starter. But this was a little bit of a different approach. But I think right now we're still navigating, the two transfer portal windows and how that affects roster retention. And so, you might see some more of this in the future.
Yeah, for sure. I just can't wait to see this guy play, right? And it was the South Florida game a couple of years ago when I was excited to get a look at both Ty Simpson and Tyler Buckner, right? If Jalen Milroe wasn't going to play, at least we get to see backups playing meaningful snaps in a game that is going to be competitive and that they have to win, right? And when Ty Simpson came in there in the conditions that they were in, it was just cool to see him let a couple fly, drop one in the bucket to CJ Dupree, and it looked like this guy has a lot of arm talent. He seems like he can do some things in the future. So let's get back to Ty Simpson in just a second. I don't mean to bury the lead here, Clint, because the news of the week so far has obviously been the running back position. Jam Miller, we obviously know that he has an upper body injury is what they reported. We're hearing collarbone now, obviously, and it's going to take him a little while longer, I think, than they anticipated for him to come back. They're hoping he'll be back sooner than later, but we know he won't be playing in the Florida State game at least, and we know that he was having a good camp, right? And DeBoer and Grubb were pretty emphatic in their praise about his impact, his progress, And before we get to what we'll see from the backs now that he's injured, Clint, where was it going with Jam Miller specifically? Like, what had you heard about his role in the Grub offense and how key he still plans to be when he gets back from this stretch?
Yeah, he was having a great fall camp, and really, he had had a great summer. He had had a great spring. The coaching staff was extremely high on him, and one thing that I've said multiple times, what really told me exactly where he stood is when Ryan Grubb was asked how the running backs were doing. Essentially, was the question. It wasn't about anybody specifically, just really that position as an overview. And the first two words out of his mouth was Jam Miller, and then he let there be a pause, essentially saying, "That's the guy." And just his ability in pass protection, understanding not only what he's supposed to do, but being able to go out there and execute like that. I don't think people realize it's not always just as simply as knowing. You've got to be able to go out there and do it. And he had the ability to do that. He has been Alabama's best pass protecting running back for quite a while now, last year included for sure, but also his ability to catch the football out of the backfield, has the home run hitting ability that you look for. You can kind of flex him out and then put him in motion, get him on some jets, create some isolated matchups on linebackers. So, just a very good player. And you hate it for him because with where things were trending, and it still could end up being this way once he returns. But I mean, I was kind of looking at it like this guy's going to at least be getting 14, 15 carries a game, maybe a couple of, targets, 2 or 3 targets a game as well. So he was going to be a big part of the offense. I liked the rest of the running backs, but Jam Miller, just his experience and kind of spearheading that group, I think he was ready to take the next step. We don't know exactly what Jam Miller is as a running back, anyways, in my opinion, simply because of the deficiencies of the offense the last couple of years. And you can say play calling, you can say offensive line and their inability to get any sort of consistent movement off the football. You can talk about quarterback play and kind of how the run game was funneled through Jalen Milroe. Rather than the running backs. Like there were a lot of factors involved, but just I still don't think Alabama fans have seen what Jam Miller is fully capable of. I think he was fully trending towards that prior to the injury, but we're hoping that he's able to get back and round back into form.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he's a guy who showed a lot of glimpses into what he can do. I mean, you just look at the past 2 Georgia games in particular. He's making big plays, not even as a rusher, right? As somebody who can catch it out of the backfield, downfield, as somebody who can make key blocks for Jalen Milroe while he's making explosive plays. So Jam Miller, a guy that I know people are going to want to see a lot more of. So, you mentioned the other running backs, right? Those who follow you online at Clint R. Lamb, they saw some recent discussion about how the running backs behind Jam Miller, guys who will directly have a big opportunity before his return, how they're going to fit into this system now. The names are Richard Young, Daniel Hill, Dre Washington. People have heard these names now. They know a little bit about them. Richard Young obviously has the most experience, though Daniel Hill isn't far behind him. I think Richard Young had like 27 carries last year. Daniel Hill had like 21. So he wasn't far behind. But how do you see the rotation now working? Who has the biggest impact while Jam Miller is out?
I think it can work out in a number of different directions, and it is kind of hard to say. I think all 3 guys are going to be involved. Before you were thinking, okay, it's probably going to be like a 2-headed or a 3-headed monster, depending on the workload for Jam Miller. And if it was a 3-headed monster, there's been 4 guys who have really been in that conversation. So who's really the odd man out? Now that Jam Miller, at least for the time being, is kind of shelved, you can say, okay, all 3 of the guys that we've been talking about being in that rotation, you're probably going to see all of them. A lot of people lean Richard Young, completely understandable, former top 75 recruit, former number 2 overall running back, number 4 overall running back, has gotten some opportunities, more so as a closer, late in mop-up duty games. But, the guy has power. He runs extremely hard. He's a fun guy to watch. I wouldn't be shocked at all if he ended up leading Alabama's backfield during Jam Miller's absence. But with that being said, while I am high on Richard Young, I'm just a little bit higher on Daniel Hill and Dre Washington. I just think Daniel Hill, he just brings something a little bit different. 6'1", 244 pounds. He brings that power that you look for at the position. He's going to be a sledgehammer in those short yardage and goal line situations. But at the same time, I think he provides way more than that. I think he's got, from the limited that I've seen him, I think he's got good vision. He's a phenomenal receiver out of the backfield. I think he's really a much bigger mismatch in the passing game than people realize. And I think opposing defenses are really going to underestimate that element of his game, at least in the beginning stages of this upcoming season. So really like what he can do. And what I think Alabama needs primarily, probably more than anything, is to have more early down success, stay on schedule, allow the playbook to remain open where you can kind of, do whatever it is that you want to do. I just think too often last year there wasn't enough early down success, too many second longs, too many third and longs. And really, your offensive line's not built for that. Jalen Milroe was not built for that. And so I just think it was a bad recipe. A guy like Daniel Hill, I think his ability to consistently churn out 4 to 5 yards a carry should really help the offense stay on schedule. Dre Washington adds something a little bit different, got a little bit more juice, a little bit more wiggle. I think he's, also a good receiving back out of the backfield. And as far as elusiveness and being able to make guys miss in the open field, probably a little bit better than the other two guys. But it's, I don't think at this point anything would make me lean in one direction where it's going to be heavily one guy. I think you'll see kind of a three-headed monster. They'll all get their opportunities. And there could be some games where one guy has the hot hand and they ride him a little bit more. But I think with Jam Miller being out, he was the clear lead horse. But, there were also a lot of other guys involved for sure.
Yeah, I mean, that's what Alabama fans are certainly going to like to hear. Good to have depth, right? Like when your starter goes out, you've got three guys who can play. And I think I heard you also say on your show that you feel worse for Jam Miller than you do for Alabama, right? That Alabama is equipped for this situation and that it just hurts that he's not going to have the opportunity that everybody thought and hoped that he would. But sounds like he will be back this year. So it's something to look forward to. Let's shift gears back to the quarterback, Clint. So Ty Simpson's stock has been up, and we keep hearing this glowing praise about his scrimmage reps and just how he's kind of like taken the lead. He's obviously named QB1 officially, but people have drawn comparisons to Mac Jones because he's waited his turn. Fans have said that he just needs to be Jake Coker or even AJ McCarron, which, hey, if he's the one of the winningest quarterbacks in the history of college football, then great, right? But Clint, like, what do you see as Ty Simpson's ceiling here? Like, is he the focal point of this offense? Does the offense go as he goes, or is this like a system that's built for someone who can minimize mistakes and forgive an insulting term like this, but manage the offense instead?
It's always funny how that is taken as a negative, because I think that's the goal of any quarterback, is to manage the offense and get the football to your playmakers, allow them to make the plays. Now, granted, in some of these games, you've got to put the game on your shoulders. You've got to go out there and win football games. I mean, that's just the nature of the business, playing the quarterback position. What I like about Ty Simpson, I'll start with his own talent, because I do, this is a former 5-star recruit. I understand that he's waited multiple years. In a lot of ways, that benefits him, in my opinion. And a good example of that would be, in this past scrimmage, he goes, 14 of 16? I think, some people were saying 15 of 16, but the only one or two incompletions were apparently drops. But as far as the explosive plays downfield, you didn't see a whole lot of that. You did in the first scrimmage, didn't in the second. And a lot of people who were in attendance, they were wondering, okay, it kind of seems like he's, playing it safe. He's not taking a whole lot of chances. I think that that's just that the defense has been getting their tails whipped as far as the explosive plays. And a lot of these practices and scrimmage-like situations, they put an emphasis on, hey, we're not going to get beat deep. We're not going to allow the explosives like we have been. And what's encouraging about Ty Simpson, and where I think his experience comes into play and benefits him, is that he didn't feel the need to force anything. He was willing to say, okay, we'll take what you give us, and we'll move the football in a different way. And Alabama had success, according to people who were in attendance, doing it that way. He still averaged, I mean, if people are correct, somewhere between 9.5 to 10 yards an attempt. I mean, that's still going to be in the elite category. And so, just when you look at him and what his ceiling could potentially be, I think he can be one of the best quarterbacks in the country. I think between his own talent, but also the surrounding circumstances, when you talk about the bare, necessities that a quarterback needs to be able to be successful, complementary run game, even though Jam Miller is going to be out, I still think Alabama is going to provide that. We've heard good things about the offensive line generating movement off the football in these scrimmage-like settings and throughout fall camp. As far as the weapons that you need in the passing game, a variety of weapons, a variety of body types and matchups that you can kind of identify and utilize on a week-to-week basis, a complementary defense, a play caller that you can trust. There's continuity at a lot of different places, including his own offensive coordinator, from last year, who he already was established with and comfortable with. Now he's his quarterback's coach. Like, it's just across the board. He is set up for success around him, but also he's got his own talent. He can take advantage of the short to intermediate passing game. He can go vertical, but the mobility factor is where people are really sleeping on him, and he can still be a +1 matchup problem, for opposing defenses. So he can beat you in a variety of ways. I think he's going to be really successful. His mind seems to be in the right place, and he is set up for success. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if he ended up being one of the best quarterbacks in college football in 2025.
Clint, I'm with you on the game manager thing. I don't really understand the label. I think Alabama fans are obviously fine with it, but everybody else, I think like it's a presumption. It's like become this weird stigma that doesn't that deserves a little more context. I mean, what's the old Saban adage we would hear all the time? You said it during that explanation. Take what the offense gives you, right? Like at some point, you just realize that's just good football, right? You're going to win if you do that. I'm going to use an extreme example here, but to me, like Tom Brady was the king of this, right? Where it's like the guy can make any and every single throw, but like how many checkdowns does the guy have to make before you realize that what he's doing is winning and that's just good football? So it's a great point by you and the guys he's throwing it to, right? The receivers. I mean, Ryan Williams and Jeremy Bernard, they had nearly 50 catches apiece last season. The next receiver down the list was Kobe Prentice with just 11 catches. Like, do you think that this year we're going to get something similar, like a steady dose of Williams, Jeremy, Isaiah Horton potentially as the third guy? Or do we see more of this wide receiver room that we keep hearing about on the field?
I think the better comparison is not 2024 Alabama. I think it's 2023 Washington. I think it's, kind of in that 2018, 2019 Alabama. Not saying necessarily to the degree with talent. I mean the fact that you had 4 receivers who were pretty heavily involved back, on those Alabama teams. You had a tight end who was very heavily involved in Irv Smith Jr., and yet you still had plenty to go around as far as your running backs. You had a stable of running backs, and you can kind of divvy up the carries or the opportunities. I think that's more of what you're looking for. This offense can certainly win. That you have a quarterback that can handle the volume as far as the passing. You can really get a lot of different guys involved, and I think Alabama will. When you're funneling the run game through your quarterback, plus you're trying to run the football, limited pass attempts, shorter games, obviously, because you're running clock a little bit more. But I just think that when you look at the wide receiver room that Alabama has now, certainly going to, Ron Williams, we've heard great things about them kind of moving him around, creating some mismatches, letting him go out there and play winning football. Jeremy Bernard, steady, reliable presence, extremely physical. Definitely think he's going to continue to be a massive part of the offense. But just Isaiah Horton's the one, and I'm a huge fan of Rico Scott too, by the way. But Isaiah Horton, in particular, I mean, this guy, I'm not saying Alabama did anything they weren't supposed to do, but I will say he was already being connected to Alabama before he even entered the transfer portal. And Alabama had a clear need as far as size and length that they didn't have in 2024 that Isaiah Horton immediately filled. He's not just a big body guy. He can certainly do those things, get downfield, win those contested catches. I don't feel like Miami did that or allowed him to do that enough, but he also can do a lot more for you as far as the in breaking routes going across the middle of the field, better route runner than a lot of people think. And so, every time there for a while, it was like it could be, in these practice highlights that they're posting to social media, it could be, scrimmages where you're not there, but that, rumors are coming out of it. It's like every time it's Isaiah Horton making an explosive play downfield. So I don't know what it will look like from a target standpoint. I don't know if he's going to get just an absurd amount of targets, but I think his targets are going to be efficient because a lot of the attention is probably going to be going on other guys. But then also just his own playmaking ability, I think he's got a chance to have a massive season for Alabama, not necessarily from a numbers standpoint, but just from an impact standpoint. I wouldn't be shocked at all if we're looking back after this season and we're saying it just felt like every time that guy touched the football, it was a huge play. And I wouldn't be shocked at all if Ty Simpson really, he'll go at Jeremy Bernard and Ron Williams and all those guys as well. But I could see Isaiah Horton being a guy that he trusts in some of those critical situations.
Getting our hopes up here, Clint. Looking forward to seeing this guy play, but we keep hearing great things so far. So, yeah, eager to say the least. Last question, Clint, about the offense. On that note, like how different will Alabama look on offense in 2025? Because, we know we go from Nick Sheridan to Ryan Grubb at the offensive coordinator position. But, we keep hearing about the impact that Grubb has already had. But schematically, like now with a quarterback that has a totally different skill set and style of play from what Jalen Milroe gave you and what they had to build around last year, like is this as extreme as like it's cut and dry? It's that different. It's night and day, or did we already catch a glimpse at what a DeBoer system looks like in 2024, and we'll just see something more polished this season?
There might be elements, but I think it's going to be pretty different. I think one of the big differences is going to be the screen game. Jalen Milroe, from everything that I'd heard, he just wasn't overly comfortable doing some of that screen stuff. And I don't know what about it, he wasn't comfortable with. I know as far as reading on zone reads and things like that, wasn't always comfortable making those reads. So sometimes it looked like a zone read when it wasn't. It was a pure keeper or, whatever. But as far as the screens are concerned, that's such a massive part of the DeBoer Ryan Grubb offense, and it's another situation like you got to be able to run the football on early downs, but you also got to be able to set yourself up on those screens. If it's 2nd and 10, get the football out to one of your playmakers, let him make a move, pick up 6-7 yards. Now it's a very manageable 3rd and 3. It's this constant straining defenses, and they do it by layering things and throwing so many different things at you defensively where it's kind of hard to keep up. Very complex. Like when you're trying to study or you're going to be going against it, it is a lot to digest. I don't think that they were able to fully implement everything that they wanted to within the offense last year, obviously because it was a massive transition period. Also, I just think what Jalen Milroe did, it was like, hey, let's kind of stick to this. Let's make him as a coordinator. You can either make yourself uncomfortable or you can make your quarterback uncomfortable if you guys aren't already aligned with what it is that you guys want to do. I think Alabama did everything in their power to make Jalen Milroe comfortable last year, which in turn maybe made Nick Sheridan and Kalen DeBoer a little uncomfortable. I think the quarterback play calling marriage is going to be a lot more aligned. I think that's going to help, and I think it's going to look a lot different. You're going to see some, motion was a big part of it last year, but I think as far as motioning and creating mismatches and throwing different things at defenses, you're going to see a much different product than you saw last year.
Well, so last question here, Clint. Who is someone or what is a storyline that isn't getting nearly enough attention right now, either locally or nationally, where people just aren't plugged in? Like, who or what are people sleeping on with Alabama football right now?
Ooh, that's a great question. I think you could go in a number of different directions. I think they've got the ability to stop the run, especially between the tackles. I know a lot of Alabama fans that felt like, hey, against Vanderbilt when they really needed stops on the ground, they couldn't really get them. Obviously, Oklahoma had quite a bit of success, as far as the quarterback and things like that. But when you go and look, a lot of it was quarterback success as far as running the football, and a lot of that wasn't between the tackles. So everybody wants to put it on the defensive line, and really it was more of out there on the perimeter. It was second level. As good as Jahad Campbell was, I think run fits at times. I don't know if it was just a transitional thing or if that's just something that Jahad Campbell struggles with. But Deontay Lawson at times too. Don't always think the run fits were where they needed to be. That would be one aspect that I think people are definitely sleeping on. I think opposing offenses, they're going to go into football games just saying, hey, I don't think we're going to be able to do much between the tackles. We're going to try some things, keep them honest. But, I think Alabama's going to have a really stout interior run defense. And then the other thing would probably be just how physical this offseason and I mean, obviously physical in practice, but also grueling and just the way that they've really pushed these guys, how much that's going to make a difference. These guys have kind of been through the ringer this summer. I think they're as physically ready as they've been in quite a while, and they're hungry and eager. And I just think that, you see the Jam Miller injury, and that kind of happens, when you're being super physical in practice. That's the downside of it. But the upside is that, typically teams that are practicing this hard, as long as you manage it well and you don't run them down too quickly, before the season even starts, they'll get out there and they'll go hit somebody in the mouth. And I just think with the way that Alabama's approached this offseason, you're probably going to see quite a bit of that.
Awesome. Hey, Clint, that's fantastic stuff. We're going to take a break here now, and you're good, but we want to see how good you really are. So when we get back, we're going to put your Alabama football knowledge to the test. So stick around. All right, welcome back to Beat Everyone. We're here with Clint Lamb of Cover Crimson and A to Z Sports, and we're also now joined by our good friend, Beat Everyone producer, Matt Scalisi. Matt, you got something planned for us here.
I do, guys. A lot of talk about quarterbacks, and quarterback battles are always, significant historical moments for the program. So I'm going to have a trivia contest for the two of you that is all about Alabama backup quarterbacks. This is going to really stretch your expertise. We'll see how you guys do here. Clint, I feel like you should go first since you're the guest.
Okay, we'll see how this goes.
You have the honors. All right, Clint. So your first question here. In 2005, Brody Croyle was the wire-to-wire starter for a Crimson Tide team that went 10-2 that year. There were two quarterbacks on the roster behind Brody Croyle that season. Can you name them?
Oh man, 2005. So 2004, I know there's Mark Gillen and Spencer Pennington, but I think was Spencer still there in 2005? I think by that point he was all baseball. Mark Gillen was probably 2003, 2004. Oof. I remember that team well, but as far as backup, I mean John Parker Wilson. Yeah, I think he would have been on campus. So JP Wilson was one of them, right?
I'm gonna go ahead and give it to you, Clint, because you named them both. It's John Parker Wilson and Mark Gillen, who was still there.
Okay.
So you nailed it. 2 for 2.
Well done,
there.
man.
That was
Mark Gillen.
That was Gillen's last season on campus. He transferred out after that. He actually started 2 games in 2004 because of injuries. But yeah, great pulls there, Clint. Off to a good start.
Yeah, Mark Gillen is a name that Alabama fans certainly remember.
Yes.
Yeah. When they had to go to the third string in 2004, I think everybody kind of knew where that was heading.
For sure. All right. Back to you, Ben. In 2009, of course, Greg McElroy won the starting job while A.J. McCarron redshirted for his freshman year on campus. Can you name either of the eligible backups to Greg McElroy in 2009, considering AJ redshirted? He was not going to play that year. 2 other guys behind him. I'm gonna give it to you if you can name even one of them.
2009. So was this their last season at Alabama, or did they stick around a little while?
I don't believe that's the case for either one of them.
Whoa. Okay.
2009. This was an open competition going into that season. So
going into the competition, going into the season, Greg McElroy and John Parker Wilson had gone.
It's going to be one of those where you kick yourself when you hear the name.
And they didn't stick around. It's not Philip Sims, because that was the next year, right? With A.J. McCarron. That was the next season. So it's not Philip Sims. All right, I guess I'm going to have to kick myself because I'm just drawing a blank. Clint, do you want to take this one?
Star Jackson.
What a steal for Clint. Star Jackson is right. The other one was a guy named Thomas Dara, who actually, for old heads who were maybe message board warriors back then, there was a brief uprising of fans who were sure that Thomas Dara was going to win the job.
Man, I nearly said Jimmy Johns, right? Wasn't he going to play quarterback at one point?
Jimmy Johns would have been before that for sure. Okay. But yes, he played quarterback in high school in Mississippi. He was Mr. Football.
All right, 1-0. Star Jackson, great pull there, Clint. You're a real one.
Wild. All right, back to Clint here. All right, Clint, since the year 2000, 4 quarterbacks have started just a single game for Alabama. Can you name them?
Tyler Buckner.
I would say you got the hard one out of the way first.
Is that the hard? Okay, so since the year 2000, is that the hard one, really?
Well, there's probably one other that'll be difficult, but you go ahead.
Oh man. Blake Barnett.
Blake Barnett is one.
Okay. The Cooper Bateman? No.
Cooper Bateman did start the Ole Miss game in 2015.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Oh man.
You got one more, and your hint is this is a pre-Saban year.
Honestly, I'm done.
Can I go?
think
Let me try the save. Repeat the
Ben, let's
question
see.
again for the people.
So these guys all started just one game, and it's all happened since the year 2000. So
Brandon
we have
Avalos.
Brandon
Avalos?
Avalos is the fourth one, Ben. A really
That's-
really nice pull there. He started the Southern Miss game in 2000
That is a
in
great
2003 or 4. I'm trying to remember.
Tuscaloosa's own Brandon Avalos, right?
Yes, he is.
I think I actually played church league basketball against Brandon Avalos. So
yeah, Brandon got some action that year. Look, it was the Shula era was dire for many reasons, but primarily because Brody Croyle just kept getting it just absolutely injury riddled for most of his career.
wow.
All right, we're back to you for this one, Ben. Ben, you mentioned Philip Sims earlier. I'm going to quiz you on this one. Who had more career passing yards at Alabama, Philip Sims or Paul Tyson?
Oh man, it's got to be Philip Sims, right?
It's Philip Sims by a very small amount. He had 163 yards. Paul Tyson had 150.
Yeah, we barely saw Paul Tyson. What's he up to now, Clint?
Oof, that's a great question.
I know where he is. Do you guys know?
No.
Paul Tyson is at Clemson.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Oh, I actually did hear this.
Playing?
Yeah.
So he still has eligibility?
I don't know if he's still there, but he did go to Clemson, and I believe the story was he kind of his plan was he wanted to be a football coach, and he wanted to go learn from Dabo and his staff. So that's where he ended up.
Okay.
All right, I've got one final one, and I'm gonna see if either of you guys can work together on this if you want. Okay.
Okay.
We're going to the 2014 quarterback battle, right?
Ooh.
So this is post AJ McCarron. This was a period of time where you basically could pick any position on the depth chart for Alabama, and they're like 6 deep with 5 stars at every single position. Quarterback was no different. So Blake Sims and Jake Coker were kind of the 2 top guys battling it out. There were actually 3 other scholarship quarterbacks on that roster, all highly rated recruits, 4 or 5 star. Can you guys name the other 3 guys besides Blake Sims and Jake Coker?
I'll let you go first here, Clint.
Let's see. Highly rated guy. I know Cornwell was still on their roster then.
David Cornwell is one. Very nice.
The top 100 guy. We were just talking about Cooper Bateman. He was already on the roster by that point.
Cooper Bateman was there, yes.
And you said it was 4?
There's one more. You've named 2 of them. One more guy.
Oh, I mean it's got to be. I don't know if he was highly rated, but Alec Morris.
Right? Alec Morris is the 3rd guy. Yes.
Wow, swept it. Well done, dude.
So that's
very impressive, Clint. Very impressive.
But
yeah, that was a. I remember when that quarterback battle happened. What was it in 2016 when Jalen Hurts ended up winning it, and there was the couple years later there was the Cornwell Blake Barnett drama, and
That's
I think
right.
Alec Morris weighed in on that. That's the only reason I know that.
you care to share any details there, Clint?
I stirred up something. I posted a photo
you did?
of like all 3 of them. I don't remember what the caption was, but I think Cornwell decided to throw shade at Blake Barnett, and then Blake Barnett responded to him. And then Alec Morris ended up weighing in on the conversation.
A really dramatic time. That's a future episode one day when we've consulted with our lawyers about the Blake Barnett era at Alabama.
Impressive. But I mean, what a fascinating quarterback battle, though, how it just ended up going to Jalen Hurts. And yeah, for those guys who are all talented quarterbacks, just to end up being like footnotes in Alabama history behind a guy who'd be a future Super Bowl MVP. But that USC game is just incredible because Alabama just destroyed USC, who had that infamous entrance, right?
That's
where
right.
They're like on their knees and stuff, crawling into the stadium. Alabama won that game 52-6, and they didn't even know who their starting quarterback was.
And it was actually a really ugly first quarter too. Barnett really couldn't do anything. I believe Jalen fumbled his first snap of the game.
That's right. Turnover. It was a turnover. Do you remember? Blake Barnett still ended up throwing like a 50-yard touchdown
He
pass
did.
in that game. Do you remember
Yes.
who was on the receiving end of that?
We're really drilling deep.
Do you know?
I'm gonna guess it was our Darius Stewart.
Nope.
No?
Clint, do you know?
Was it a Cam Sims or a Robert Foster?
No, I believe it was Gary Dieter. Gary Dieter,
okay.
Pat Mahomes' best friend, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
We still have not seen another team enter a college football game like that, by the way. I think that was a lesson learned through the years.
That video gets shared.
It's like they have been memed into oblivion after doing that.
They still haven't recovered.
You got to ask if it's worth it before you do it next time. Yeah.
I don't even remember who the USC coach was at that time.
He's at Clay Helton.
Yeah, that's right. Okay.
Yeah.
That video gets shared like every other offseason. People are just like, oh, remember this? Remember USC doing this? Incredible. Well, Matt, well done on the questions. Clint, I'm impressed with your knowledge. I knew I would.
You guys crushed it.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm surprised.
You got to go. Matt, thanks for doing this. As usual, our Beat Everyone producer there, good friend Matt Scalisi. You can find his work on Cover Crimson and A to Z Sports. Clint Lamb, thanks so much for doing this, man.
Absolutely, fellas. This was fun. I had a blast. Appreciate you guys having me on.
Go check out his stuff right now. Find Beat Everyone on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Ben Flanagan with AL.com. Thank you. We'll see you next time.